Good morning, everybody. Today me and Tony are gonna go through how to multiply your marketing content. It's kind of a question I get a lot in the marketing space is how to minimize how much you're working on your marketing and how to put that marketing multiple places. So today, the goal is to understand how to repurpose one piece and then increase your brand awareness, your visibility, and ultimately save you time because not everybody who comes into real estate loves marketing or wants to be a class marketer, but you have to retain your business and to prolong how much people know about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. So the goal is to get a system for you that works for your schedule, but then also the execution of it. So the topics today, and why it matters is again, time management. Not everybody has the same 24 hours in the day, but it is nice to be able to condense your marketing efforts into an efficient way. But with that, you also want to be consistent. And a lot of people who decide to do marketing efforts may have a really good week and then they take off 6 months. And then you kind of see that in your either on your social media platforms and your email open rate or whatever it is, how much people respond to your stuff. So if you're more consistent, you'll get more out of it. Even Bradley talked about it a couple weeks ago in his class about how consistency has changed his business, even with market update flyers in their inbox or in their mailbox every month. It's a small thing, it's a very general thing, but it's still a touch that he's making consistently. So that really is key to help build trust. And then for the social and digital media platforms, it's really important for the algorithms because they do see consistency as a desirable thing people want in their feed. They want to see what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then once they see that you have something of value that people are looking at for a lot longer or clicking on, seeing the links, they're going to want to put your stuff at the top of people's digital feeds, whether that's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube even. All those really matter as far as being consistent, but you have to manage your time in order to make those things happen. So today's agenda is we're going to talk about the power of repurposing, why it's important, what your superpower is. So Tony taught a class a couple weeks ago about what your superpower is in real estate. And so he's going to talk a little bit about what that is and why it's important, because that is very important in talking about your content. So we'll go into your content pieces and then let's shrink this a little bit. And then 5 media is to place that content and more. So 5 is just a number, but it's just the idea is that you can take one piece, put it multiple places. 5 places is a good place to start, but multiple places is the goal. So why it's important is we just talked about it a little bit, but the idea is that you're not taking so much time recreating new content, but you're taking really good content and putting it multiple places. A lot of people need multiple touches before they remember your name, before they remember your brand, before they remember what you do and why you're even talking to them. So it's important to have really good stuff, like valuable, relevant things that people want to hear about, whether that's their neighborhood, whether that's their community, and we'll talk about examples later. But quality over quantity ultimately for your content. And then again, saves you time, creating content, whether that's a video, your e-newsletter, a letter physically in the mail, whether that's planning an event. The idea is that you streamline how you're doing, how you're making your content. And then also it helps you reach more people. If you take one piece of content and put it multiple places, the goal is that you can reach the people you want, people that already follow you with the same one effort. So putting it into your e-newsletter, putting that into the same mailbox, same piece of content, but different audiences. And the goal too is maybe you take your one market update and you cater the message a little differently to your sphere and you add in a little bit personal side in there. Like when I moved into this neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. So you might make it a little bit more personal for your database. But for your farm, you might change the message a little bit to go to them. So it's more data driven versus personal driven because they don't really care about as much personal stuff yet. They care about what's relevant and valuable to them in the neighborhood. So the idea is that you still have the same core amount of content, but you're repurposing it other places, like reduce, reuse, recycle kind of deal, but with your content. So, I'm gonna have Tony, he's gonna talk about identifying what your superpower is and why it's important in creating your content, so.
So with the superpower, and some of you already took the class a couple weeks ago. You know. Before you can really hone in on what you are going to do and say overall, you have to figure out what you're good at. So the couple touch points that McKenna was saying really makes a lot of sense, because if you do know what you're really good at, when you're doing batch creation, you can actually create a lot of content and not even put it out. You can save it. There's a lot of things that I create that hasn't been even released yet, even though I did it all in one session. Because sometimes it's not relevant, sometimes you're just creating, sometimes you want to talk about a certain topic, then it goes into something else, right? But going back to this, you know, what is your natural edge? What do people usually praise you for? Think about your clients or think about past clients, even if you're new. What do people always say about you? You're so easy to talk to. You're so, you're always nice. You're always, you always explain things really well. Then that is kind of your superpower. And what makes you irreplaceable?
Yeah.
What makes you stand out from other agents, right? So second piece of that is, and again, I'm just going through the highlights of what we talked about in the other class, but are you a negotiator? Are you the master of your deal? Do you make human connections? Do you connect a lot? Right? So, are you the hub of opportunity? Are you an educator? There are some people that are really, really good at, delivering a message and really going, hey, these are the 3 steps of how to buy a house. The empath, you have emotional intelligence. I really relate to you. People just like you. People feel comfortable with you. The hustler. Sometimes people like that person that's just like, I'm the negotiator. I'm also the hustler. I'm gonna make sure it gets done. Here I am, I'm getting it done. I'm always gonna be working for you. Don't worry about it. There's no obstacle that I can't go through. Or the marketer. Are you just, do you present yourself with a Porsche, and, high-end person, and that's what you present? But people like that. Some people love that image of an agent going, and showing and being your agent. It just depends. So those are common real estate kind of things that you really are your superpower, right? What makes you unique? What's your unique selling proposition? So what is your USB, right? Once you determine what sets you apart from other real estate brokers is your local expertise, your personalized service, your specialized niche, or your unique approach to real estate. Maybe you're out there, maybe you're a unique butterfly. The cool thing about our brokerage is we have all those kind of characteristics. If you really look around, you have the characteristics even within this room, right? You have different people that set you apart. Like if I had to put my superpower, I am like, I can not negotiate. Well, I am a great negotiator when it comes to the nitty gritty, but I also am, I go out and I know everybody. That's kind of my superpower. I'm a connector. I connect everybody, right? That's my superpower. Like, personalized service. I would say Ramona has very beautiful personalized service, right? She makes you feel like $1 million. Like, there's certain things that are your niche, right? That really define you, who you are. So ensure that all your branding elements reflect your unique selling proposition, right? Because now you're giving a point of view on why somebody should hire you. Remember, what is that? So knowing your target audience, really do your research on this, right? Understand the pain points of the demographic you're trying to reach out to. And or say you're doing a neighborhood. If you're doing a neighborhood, where's the local Safeway? Where's the local QFC? Where is the tennis club? Where is the schools? How, what are the schools rated? How quick can you get to the freeway? What are the local markets? Who sells, boba tea? Who sells, whatever that is. I'm thinking about the Rent Highlands specifically. We use that as a case study that you're gonna see later on. But I know where the Supercuts is. I know where the auto parts store. I know where the Rinconcito is, which is the Mexican food place. I know where Tokyo is right down the street, which is a sushi place. I know where Bank of America, Chase, all of these things that you need. So you have to know your target if you're gonna do something local. If you're gonna do a women's group, you're gonna target women between the ages of 25 and 35. Okay, what demographics are they? What type of women? Because even within that, there's a subgroup of women that you want to reach out to. What is it that you're tailoring to your messaging that you're really doing? So unique superpower, who you're targeting now, and be very specific. That'll help you start creating your marketing for the next piece, right? Which is, once you establish that superpower, the value that you bring, your brand and your target market, your content will automatically come alive. Because then you'll be able to say, this is what I'm bringing, this is who I'm bringing it to, and this is why you should hire me. That makes sense? So now, with all the classes you guys have taken and all the classes that McKenna and I have been putting together, now we're bringing it all together kind of full circle. Like, this is how you can market to people. So the biggest thing feedback that McKenna and I get are, I don't know what to say or produce. But if you really get this really down, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, everybody's content is also very tailored to them. Like, my content is gonna be very different than Tony's content versus your content versus Eric's content. It's all gonna be based on you, because we don't have the same database, we don't have the same farm usually, we don't live necessarily door to door with each other, so we're all gonna have different areas that we're catering items to. So the goal with all of these points too, with having your value and brand established and who that's being marketed to, is that you're creating that know, like, trust model in all of your marketing, that they begin to know you, they begin to like what you put out and how you're doing it, and then they begin to trust you based on all the ways that you are marketing to them. So with creating content, the goal is to have a plan of how you're getting the content and where you're going to putting the content out. So this is kind of interactive too. Does anyone know what your guys' core content should be? And this is like per person. What should your core content be in your real estate business? What are just some ideas? You guys can unmute yourselves on Zoom, but I kind of want to get a gauge of what you guys think you should be posting or putting in the mail or sharing the most when it comes to marketing yourself. Core content.
Market stats.
Market stats. One in the market. What are some other good?
Wire home selling.
Buyer, home selling. Tips, guides.
Yeah, I think like to what Tony said, like, local spots, restaurants, where to go, where your kids might want to go, what the schools are kind of like, walk about, if you're focusing on a particular area.
Local, yeah. Hyper local is even
Another kind of key thing that. Another kind of key thing that we forget as agents is we're seeing it from the agent's eye. Be a consumer again. What do you want to hear about?
Yeah, what core content would you wanna receive?
What do you don't have a home or you do have a home. And I need somebody to list for me. What do I want my agent to be? I know that if I'm a local agent. If I'm selling my house in Bellevue, I want my agent to know the local market. So who am I gonna really interview? I'm gonna interview the agent that has given me all the content and all the information on the Bellevue area. So I think we forget that, put yourself in the consumers, if I'm a first-time buyer. I want to talk to the agent that is talking about, how do I buy a house? What tips and tricks do I have for a first-time buyer? You know, am I relatable to that person that is a first-time home buyer?
So,
Make sense?
yeah,
We forget to put ourselves in the consumer's shoes, so.
no, it's a good point that the core content is gonna be what is appealing to them, what's valuable to them.
Not what you wanna talk about.
Not what would make you money, but what would make them money usually, and then you're the service in that. So, how do you guys usually come up with your content? When you think about what things I'm going to communicate, how do you usually come up with that? Any ideas or processes that you're doing right now?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, my favorite.
It's not a bad place to start.
Not a
It
bad
really
place to
is
start.
not.
Nope. Any other ways you guys are coming up with your content?
Cyber world,
You know, I think my kids, you know, like listening to what the kids say, honest, pure, you know, raw. You know, like their insights is very innocent and not, it's not without thought, right? Like they just say what's on their mind and just, I'm like, oh shit, why didn't I think about that part of my mouth?
Authentic.
I mean, there's something to what he's saying. Is what are people outside of in your sphere saying to you? What are the conversations they're having with you when you're talking about real estate? I get a lot of my personal content from people that I'm having conversations with. Hey, how's the market is probably the most common one, obviously, right? But then you get into, hey, I saw the Seattle Times article that came out, literally, this happened this weekend. The Seattle Times article that came out that houses are softening. And I'm like, no, they're not. But that's just right then in itself, that's content right there. Because again, put yourself in your consumer's shoes. It's the number one mistake. I've done it 1,000 times, so I'm not judging. But I'll come up with content. I'm like, oh, this is what we're gonna put out what people want to hear about. Talk about the Seattle market, yeah. Hey, article came out, show them go buy a newspaper, show them the article and be like, this is my thought on what it is.
And that's also a great way to, when you explain, and we'll talk about this later too, but when you explain something you know really well, like your unique value, your niche, like you explain it a lot more confidently and a lot better to people, which builds trust too. Because the more you know about something, the easier it is for you to just explain it. It's same with like sports. If you're really passionate about sports and you know everything about stats and players and whatever sport it is, it's natural. It comes off very naturally in conversation. So it could be very, applicable to hear about what people around you are talking. If it's your kids, if it's people that you're in community with or your neighbors, what are they wanting to hear? And that's a great way to just get content naturally with what they want to hear and know about. And the last question is, where do you create your content? So where do you usually go to get your content or create it? If that's via video, via a design platform, via a VA, where do you guys get your content to distribute? Whether that's a letter, post, video, where do you guys usually go?
You know, that's the problem. It's the ideas, you know, are there, but then putting them out and actually implementing them is where I suck. And so where do I go? And is a
I'm pretty sure everybody on Zoom and in this room have a struggle with that too, of how you get the content executed. And I don't know if it's probably the common denominator of like.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe some role playing, you know, like in class, you know, in house, whatever, just to get comfortable in front of a video might be a good Kickstarter thought, you know, because I know, like I said, for me, I don't know, camera comes out and I get shy, but you know, take the camera away and it's fine.
We'll do that next month.
I was gonna say, yeah, we can do a next one.
We'll do that next month. We'll do
Video
a class on how to
presence.
shoot video. And then like literally how to sell a teleprompter, do it, cut and edit it right there. We've been talking
Yeah,
about that.
just out of curiosity, anyone on Zoom or in person, is anyone doing like at least a video a month? Is anybody on Zoom or in person? Video a month, one video a month, any videos? Just one.
Just one a month for
One a
me.
month, right? Okay, right now, yep, just one a month. I know Carolina. I helped Carolina shoot her video.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else doing videos?
All kinds of videos.
I know you're doing.
Your content, whatever content you got out there. Yeah, so those are just kind of good questions to, you know, ask yourself how you're beginning, because we want to answer those questions today. Is what your content is, how you're creating it, and where you're creating it on, because we want to get out of the rhythm of I sit down and I think about what kind of content I want. I get some really good ideas from Instagram or Facebook, or I come to a class and then I go and plan, and then I never execute it. I don't put it on my calendar. I don't ever post it. I never send the letter out. I never get my door knockers done. We're trying to get rid of that and more of the action item of like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get my marketing done, because I personally think it is like the other half of your business in real estate is like the retention of past clients and the future clients that you'll have is making yourself notable on your social media, on your digital media, and in people's mailboxes. So in a class I did last year, we talked about content pillars. So you guys will have those in front of you. And I've talked to actually almost, I think all of you in the room about content pillars, but the idea is that you have a foundation of who you are in real estate, and then you have pillars building up from who you are in real estate with kinds of content you can be putting out in all kinds of media. I don't want anyone to get stuck in content being only social media content, because that's usually what our video content, that's like kind of what your mind goes to is just what's your social or video media. But content is overall, what are you putting in the mailbox? What events are you doing? It's not just the media. So this is an example of what we were talking about, is kind of what you talked about, Tony, the USP, your unique selling proposition is who you are in real estate, what sets you apart from everybody else. So the idea is that you brainstorm, write down some, you know, who you want to be known as a realtor in real estate, and then maybe key points of 5 words you want to be known as in real estate. So do you want to be the trustworthy realtor? Do you want to be the communicative? Where do you want to be that expert in? Is it the Renton Highlands? Is it in East Bellevue? Is it in downtown Auburn? Where are you going to be known as in real estate? And once you create the foundation of branding of who you are, then you go into your pillars. So visualize it kind of as like a structure. You get your foundation of who you are, and then you have pillars of educational. So education points based on who you are in real estate. What kind of educational content you be putting out? And that's not just a video, but it could be not just a social post, but also your e-newsletter, also the letter going into the mail, also the flyer you could be using as a pop by. All that could be educational content. And then you move on to your entertainment. That may be something more entertaining, like we just did like behind the scenes videos of how you do it. Might be an event recap of what you did. Community might be more catered towards what Amit was saying about like the neighborhood highlights or local community events or vendors in the area that you can partner with. That can be a letter, that can be a flyer in the mail, that can be an event, that can be a social post, that can be a video. Different kinds of pillars is the idea. People online will also send this out too, if you wanna print it at home and work on it as a brainstorm, sesh, but the idea is that you have different pillars that create ideas of content that you can produce into all these platforms that we're gonna talk about. So here's the example one that I wrote down, so I've been providing exceptional real estate services for 2 years. I'm family and goal oriented. I want to be known as the knowledgeable, trustworthy realtor. I'm tech savvy, modern, reliable, communicative. Those are some keywords. If I were to add something to that, it'd also be the location. I want to be in like the South Tacoma area, Pierce County expert. That's maybe the mark I would go towards. And then from there, I would know that based on those, I want to do market updates for the Tacoma area. I want to do solds for maybe the month or the week, depending on what kind of piece I'm doing, the latest rates, definitions of words that people might not know, tips for home buyers and home sellers in the area, because maybe I had a conversation with someone over the weekend and they were like, what's the best thing to do before I sell my home? Oh, let me post about that actually, because that's a great question. That's a great piece of content to just take from the normal conversation you've had day to day. Entertainment ones, I mean, if you like those trendy things, you can do the trendy fun dances or videos. Huge one is client success stories. It's probably, I think, the coolest way to display what you do and from somebody else's perspective. It makes it very personal too, but it's a lot more entertaining and engaging to people because it's not just you over and over, it's somebody else talking about your services. And that again, would be all those different types of pieces, that recaps, polls, before and afters, and then exploring events, the coffee shops, your contractors, your farmers markets, community service, events, neighborhood highlights, things we kind of already talked about a little bit about. And then I do set up the pillars to be like a 75-80% to a 20% personal ratio, because it is good to have parts of who you are, and why you do what you do. You know, you're a realtor, a real estate agent, but you're also a real person. So a lot of people engage too with content that is real. It's just who you are, what you're doing. So making sure to incorporate that into your pieces. Like I know a few people who will do letter of the hearts. So it's kind of just letter about what's going on in life, maybe a recent family trip, maybe an experience you had recently. Something that's just not as real estate heavy, but it's a more personally engaging piece. And that might be something you put out to your database as a letter. You might put that into a video later on in social media. You might take that video and put it into an e-newsletter. But getting a little bit more personal with the right sphere of people so that they can connect with you, not just about real estate, because they're not, most people you talk to are not real estate agents, so they're not going to connect over all the real estate stuff, but they might connect with you over the last music concert band you went and saw. They might connect with you about the last skiing trip you went on, or the family trip around the world, or whatever it is. So do consider that when you're making your content, to keep it real estate centric, because you don't want them to forget that you're a realtor, but bring in small pieces of you.
Can I give an example? So before skipping forward to this, anybody can do this. I had a brand new agent when I had my own company with Fresh Look. He did not know anything about real estate, but he did do this. His name is Greg Colligan. He sold 8 houses in one single year as a brand new agent, and I think made over like 200 grand his first year out. How did he do it? And this guy is tatted up from here to literally his neck. And he put on a suit. He came out with his French bulldog. Oh no, it's a pit bull. He branded it really well. He gave education tips. He did entertainment stuff. He was an artist. He still is. He's actually one of the biggest tattoo artists in Seattle. And what he did exactly this. He gave out education tips. He said, I am your no BS realtor. And I'm gonna give it to you straight. That was his messaging. He knew who he was. He had such a strong presence about him that people called him, and 4 of those deals came off of all his social medias. People he didn't know. First year out. He did real estate for about 2 years. And he was doing really well. The only reason he changed is because his art business got so lucrative that he switched. But the point of this is he just focused on this. He did not care about what other people thought about him. He gave a unique selling proposition, a unique point of view, and he attracted people that quote unquote looked like him, acted like him, and wanted it straight with no BS. You are your unique selling proposition. You are the star of the show. You are your brand. The quicker you realize that, stop worrying about the content being perfect. I mean, this guy came out, literally, his Instagram page was just him in a suit with his pit bull. And you can kind of tell, and his tattoo showing and everything, he didn't care. So stop worrying about making the content perfect. He didn't care. He just started talking. He talked about education. He entertained people. He showed personal life with all the art he was creating. And he was always everywhere at these shows, art shows, this, that, and everywhere now. And he's like, I'm the artist that does real estate. And guess what? He sold a bunch of real estate. And they were all high end. I mean, one of his sales was like over 2 million. In his first year, he was pretty impressive. So, but he followed this trend. He knew who he was. He's like, I'm no BS. I'm gonna negotiate. I'm gonna work my ass off for you. That literally was his messaging. So this works. This, and I'm just saying that to reinforce it, but he put action behind it, which was kind of what McKenna was saying, is the action of it. Once we have that content, go for it. And I know that a lot of this is recap from what we've done before, but we're just trying to tie it all together, the last little part, which McKenna's about to talk about. But
Yeah, and just, he was making content based off of who he was, but also who he was attracting. The kind of content you put out, the kind of content you create is what's going to attract those kinds of people, those kinds of leads. Like if you want buyers, put out the buyer content. If you want sellers, put out the seller content. The kind of content you create are the kind of leads you're going to attract and the kind of referrals you're going to get. But he was authentic, and people love authenticity. They are attracted to that because it's real. It's not just a realtor business type, it's a real person doing exactly what they need. So yeah, it's a great case study there. So just the types of anchor content that works well. These are like the 5 top ones that I like the most right now, but also they're just trending. Would be listing tours or new listing graphics. So things that are highly visually appealing. We're in a very visual industry. People like pictures, people like videos, especially of pretty things. So putting efforts into those client testimonials, like I said, written or video, people like to see proofs of success, what you're doing and how you did it, and how people were affected by that in a positive way, and why they would use you again. Because that's a great way to get an easy referral or easy way for someone to even refer you out. It's like, oh, look at all the great things on maybe even Google. I will, just side note, make sure your Google business is up, because having your Google business with your reviews is going to be a lot easier for people to see you. I mean, Google is the biggest platform, web browser platform. So why not have a Google business profile with your reviews on there? You should always be asking for reviews, whether it's a buyer, whether it's a seller. Always have them go to your Google business profile and give you your review, because that will be that's a huge win. Long term, having that set up from the start is gonna be huge. If you do not know how to set up a Google business profile, please ask me. I can help you get that started or improve it. The third would be neighborhood spotlights, local favorites, kind of what we just talked about. And insert your neighborhood there. If you don't know where to start where you live, because you drive there every day. You know the community better than anybody else. Start there. educational tips, words, and definitions, concepts, steps of buying or selling home, and then market updates. Those when people are gonna ask you, how's the market? Well, you should already have a video or some kind of reference to that on your medias, as a resource for them to look at. So make sure you're doing market updates, since that is like the most common question people get as a realtor. How's the market doing? So elements of that would be, make sure it's a clear message, clear and concise, and something that they can do, to call, a call to action. So what are you putting out that, has an enticing message where they need you? That's relevant to them, because you wanna make it all about them, but what is something that they need to text you about that question in your video, or they need to text you about the flyer they just got in the mail. They wanna scan that QR code that links to your home bot. What is that call to action? You wanna make sure that your information isn't just loose out there, but it has something that it's going towards. You want, again, visually appealing, depending on what format you're doing, and making sure it is organic, evergreen, depending on whatever that goal is, but making it, again, authentic. I've seen a lot of people just pop out their phone at their open house, or they're listening, whatever it is, and do a little video. Even if it's 15 seconds, it's still something that shows who you are, what you're doing in the real world. I even saw like your thing is like, I'm at my nephew's baseball game. It's still touch. It's still just showing like that you're doing stuff and you're out the world. Like it's brand recognition of like, oh, I saw Tony's out. Like it's cool. It's not just the market update, but it's also something a little personal too. So, making it organic, content that you're putting out. So, what I will go over next is what we did talk about last year. We did a marketing calendar. So anyone online, you guys can get this eventually, but a content marketing calendar its purpose is to answer that question of, am I going to actually execute it? And so I created like this really basic calendar with all the months in the year, and then sections on the left-hand side showing categories. And the purpose of this is to, put it into a practical way that you're getting your content done. And then you have that like visual deadlines of your content. So this is an example. Well, start big, go detailed into the calendar. So this is what it looked like, is you'd start in the bigger concepts of what you're going to be putting out. So you might have a postcard, your email, your socials, your events, pop buys, letters. That's just an example of categories on the left-hand side. And then throughout the year, this is what you want to do every month. Again, I have a file that you can get yourself that's all customizable, to add dates, add times, add locations on here too. It's just an Excel sheet. But the goal is that you take this and I like to print mine out and jot it down what I want to do physically, and then I might put it into a digital format. And then what I would do is this is silly, but I take like a June calendar. So next month, I know I need to get my marketing done, and I would block off all the other months in the year except for June. And I look down at June and I'd be like, okay, I want to get all this done in June, all the things I planned out. When am I gonna do it? And then I take my June calendar and I look and I'd see, okay, I want to make sure I get my video done. I want my pop buys done, and I want my letter in there and my email. How do I do all that? When am I gonna do it? And what's the content gonna be? So this is the place to do it. This is the place to see it all, big picture. The more vague topics maybe, but then you get more detailed
Can you
once
share
you
that?
plan it on a normal calendar.
Can you share that one,
Yeah,
please?
I can share the template one too, so you guys can see it. But the goal is that you're now taking big calendar and then taking a monthly calendar. This is just one off Google, and saying when I'm gonna do it and how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna reserve the video room to do it on the 17th so I can post it by the 20th. I'm gonna get my content all together by the 9th so I can have my e-newsletter, my video, my letter ready to print out and take for my pop buys that weekend. The goal is that you just have a visual representation of how I'm gonna do it. Cause that's what we lack is getting it done.
And one thing I will say, and I'm gonna interject a little bit, is preparation for what you're going to film. Don't just show up to film if you're gonna film. Don't just, if you're going to do print. Think about your messaging. And so the way I break it down is I'll do half hour of brainstorming. And then the next day I do the execution of it. Or an hour of, I'm going to work, I want to do a video series. I know I have a video series coming up. I'm gonna do an hour of brainstorming, how I'm gonna say it, my scripts and everything. Upload my scripts into my teleprompter or whatever you're going to use. And then I'll execute it the following day or the day after, whenever. Then I'll do another session for editing. And or whatever, if you're gonna do print, then maybe it's like you send it to the printer. But do it instead. Don't try to do, I see the biggest common mistake, I think that's why a lot of people never get a lot of things done. Is they'll just say, okay, I'm gonna work on marketing today. I'm gonna print, edit, shoot, and do it all in one sitting. That's not
It's
how.
not
we-
realistic.
It's not realistic. It's not how we normally do things. It is. It just doesn't, I used to try to do it that way and I never did.
Well, and this is also just, I think you did a class in this, but it's good to see how you're even scheduling on your calendar, because you schedule out your dentist appointments. You schedule out your gym, your listing appointments, your buyer consultations, your haircuts. Are you scheduling out marketing time? Are you scheduling out and intentionally on your calendar? I'm gonna work on my marketing for the hour. And I already took the time to figure out my year-long calendar, so now my monthly looks less, because I know that on Monday, the 2nd, all my marketing should be done for June. I should have all what I'm going to execute in that month done, because I already planned it out in May on my year-long marketing calendar, what I'm gonna do. And now I sit down for my hour and a half, June 2nd, and that's the day that I make sure all the stuff's in June. I would even recommend in May, you should be doing that in May, or as early as you can, really, to get ahead of the game. Cause then, yeah, you set it and forget it. You get your videos done and now you have all this content for the whole month that you can just be putting out other places. Like, it doesn't matter if you shot the video on June 3rd and you post on the 26th, no one really knows or cares. They just care about the content that it is. But the idea is that you time block out your marketing for the month, or even the last week of the month before, and you go through your calendar. You say, okay, I know I gotta get all these things done. When am I gonna do it? How am I gonna do it? And where am I gonna do it? So the idea is to just have a plan of action, because right now we have a lot of ideas and aspirations to get content out, but we don't know how to do that and where to do that and all those questions. So let's start here, a very basic calendar to just implement into our schedules and then prioritize it. Because if you just try to sit down and make your video the day of and do all these things, it's gonna be really overwhelming, one, and it's gonna get messy, and it's the quality versus the quantity of the content, because you're making the quality with the quantity eventually too, is you're getting the quality content if you're planning ahead to quantify it, basically, make it multiply everywhere else in other platforms, because you took the time to plan out what your marketing would be and where it's gonna go. So, 5 places, these are, or 7, but places you can multiply your content would be Instagram, Facebook, your e-newsletter, your Google business profile, your website, letter to your spirit, or letter to your neighborhood. So just a few ideas, and we'll talk more about other places. But I will note that your e-newsletter, that can be a couple different types of audiences, right? The Google business profile could be something you update on your profile once a week. Your letter to your sphere will be a very particular piece of content and neighborhood, but you can just alter a little bit so it caters to that specific audience like we talked about earlier, making it relevant to them. So Another concept that I created is a content grid, so it helps you answer those questions of what, when, where of your content. So establishing your platforms, choosing it, scheduling it, and sharing it. Again, the idea is to make this more time savvy, so you're not spending as much time doing marketing, but you take the upfront time to plan it out and schedule it, so you can set it and forget it later. When it comes to social, when it comes to letters, when it comes to postcards, all those pieces,
Whatever you wanna do.
whatever you wanna do, doing it upfront at the beginning. Like the 1 or 2 days you have in the month as dedicated to that, so the rest of the month you're not stressing about your marketing. So this is an example of a content grid that we created, but the idea is that, let's say this is just a 7-day week. On Facebook and Instagram, I want to do a video and share it to my feed in my Facebook story. That same video I'm gonna share Friday. I'm gonna share it as a new post, and then Sunday I'm just gonna reshare it onto my stories. Monday of that week, I might do a sneak peek of the video on Instagram instead. I would create a story sharing that same video on YouTube. And then Friday later, I would create another story about the content of the video. So I actually be posting it to Instagram. And then later, at the end of the week, I would take that same video that's already on my feed now, both of them, share it to my story. E-newsletter, I have the same content from my video. So like, it is an example, like a market update. I would put that video into my e-newsletter and send it out to my sphere and my farm. And then later that week, maybe Thursday or Friday, and this isn't like an actual 7-day week, this might be like over a couple weeks, which we'll share in a couple minutes. You would include that into your market update in your flyer or Popeye CMA, whatever it is. But the idea is that, example, this is a market update video, a market update piece. It's the same market update for the Renton Highlands, and we'll show you a visual of this. If you did a Renton Highlands video on Facebook, Instagram, e-newsletter, and a physical letter, you're getting now 1, 2, 3. I mean, you're getting several touches just here by reposting the same content as a story, a post, an e-newsletter, and a physical in-person Popeye. So same message of what's going on, where are the active pending solds in the area, and what should I be looking for in the Renton Highlands area, right? But it's going to a few different areas of online and in person and digitally. So this is what I was kind of talking about. So this is, you guys have this handout too. Ultimate marketing campaign. The idea is that there's always going to be a piece, a people, a place, a platform, and then you can implement the process. So the idea is that you gather your piece. What is your content is the question. Well, you already established what your brand is. You establish your unique selling proposition about what makes you stand out from the rest of people in real estate. And then you go into the people. So who are you promoting to? So you got your piece, you got your content from your content pillars. You're going to the people. So who are you going to promote this content to? That's going to change what kind of content you're even creating. And then you're going to the place. So if I have a piece, I know what it is. I know the people I'm promoting to, but the market of those people is going to change how I'm going to communicate it or what I'm going to communicate it in, which is the platform, social, print, or digital media. It could be all of them, or it could be one of them, and then the process. So here's an example of what that might look like. Bradley talked about this a couple weeks ago too, for his how to conquer a neighborhood, but he talked about how it takes multiple touches to get in front of someone's face or even create brand awareness. And it's actually like statistically, like in the world, it takes 7 impressions for people to remember you or remember what you do, or even your name sometimes. Like it can just take 7 impressions is the number. So here's 7 ways. But let's just say we found our content, our people that we're promoting to, and the market that we're in, and we implement the process. So that might start off with like a social media touch. Then you would do a social post, you might do a print, something in the mail, an in-person touch, so you're either handshake or just a quick drop off, a digital touch, so e-newsletter, something on your website, Google Business, and then you go back to your print, and then you go back to your social, and then you go back to your people. This is kind of the flow of how I would do it, but let's look at an example. So if we were just trying to market to the Renton Highlands, and let's say I lived here, I want to start on a market update video. And again, the days that you see are just an example days. They're not actual to the date you have to do it here, but just an idea if you did it one every week. So I'd start off with my market update video and I'd post that on Instagram and Facebook of what's going on in the market in the Renton Highlands, in my favorite neighborhood in King County. With that side note, even if you see posts on Instagram and Facebook, if you incorporate the content grid layout of, I'm gonna post it on Instagram Tuesday, post it on Facebook Friday, upload on my story on Instagram Saturday, upload on my story on Facebook Sunday, you're taking the same exact thing that you're doing, but just making it relevant throughout the entire week. Well, you only made one video, but you're just reposting it on multiple sites. Then a week later, I prepped my market update letter on day 5 for 10. I made that letter based on the content I made in my video. And I went to title and I got 100 addresses. So by day 7, I send them out. And it's going to be the same content and stats and data that was on my video. I send it out. I wait a week. And then that next weekend, I'm going to go in person with a more visual representation of the content. So I might put a picture or like a map layout of the Renton Highlands. You can ask McKenna for this. And then I would put, the same content you had in your letter with nice, pretty digital flyer. And you're gonna go around to those 100 addresses, maybe 50 if you want less steps in that day, and you just drop off that same piece to everybody. It might look different because it's pretty and we want to make visuals important, but it's the same content, same stats. But do note that Tony said, add this on here, update the neighborhood data as the market is changing. By day 14, 2 weeks out, there may have been 2 other homes that sold in that neighborhood in Renton Highlands. So make sure that as you're putting out the same content, you're also keeping it relevant, updated with whatever you're sending out. So this is the visual 1-page flyer update that you're just putting on their doorstep, on their door handle, or even knocking on the door and saying, hey, just wanted to stop by and give you your quick market update for the Renton Highlands. I live around the corner, just wanted to give everyone, what's going on. Bye. That's all it is. Then even with that interaction, you might capture their email, or let's say you don't, which is fine. A week later, you would go back to title, you get your 100 addresses, email addresses from them, and you set them up on their market update email. So in My Desk, you can set them up on a catered email update just for their neighborhood with the same letter you originally were putting on people's doorsteps. You did a pop by with this nice visual. Why not make it a digital way? So then you put that same digital flyer into your e-newsletter and you send it out to those same 100 addresses. So now a week later, they're getting that same thing they just got on their doorstep from Brian that, oh, I just got this, that's cool. I lost it, but now it's in digital form in my email, cool. Or they unsubscribe, whatever it is. Then they now get another letter a week later. This might be more of like same market update, but again, you're updating the data because the market's always changing. And you might include now community highlight. What's going on in the area, who's the best, vendor, local coffee shop. For the spring market, I might add in my favorite landscaper. Who's the best landscaper in the Renton Highlands area? Just add a little different note of, they might need a good roofer, they might need someone to paint their home this summer. What's something that you can just add in there as like a little something different, but valuable to them as a home owner. Then a week later, I'm going back on social. It's now day 34, which means it's a new month, meaning it's a new market update for that month. So now I'm in June. I'm doing my June market update for the Renton Highlands, going on Instagram, Facebook, adding in all those fun, posting it on my content grid. It's scattered throughout the week. And then I'm going back in person, maybe a month later, and I'm dropping off their in-person visual update with the same information or updated information, but the same template that McKenna would create for you. And then you would also maybe add a one-page CMA. I know Yvonne did a really cool, one-page CMA, or almost like a packet thing, but all she did was add their address in. So you can like both create Canva, like insert address, and it kind of automatically fills in everybody's addresses based on the addresses and thing you get from title. Title will give you the name, their address, their email, their phone number, all that stuff, for a really good price, and you just take that and enter in their address, and now you have their name and their address on their own one-page CMA. So same information, same type of layout, but you're making it more and more personal to them. And after people, you just do etc. Like do it again. You're adding in another digital touch the next month because you're doing another market update, you're doing another print letter, another social. And in this is not like the perfect, plan. You can kind of mock this, but make it your own. Because maybe you're doing a social in between every one of those. Maybe you're really present on there and you're doing a graphic, or you're doing another just listed, just sold, open house things within there that's still present on. But for your campaign, you're campaigning to these people because you want listings in the Renton Highlands. So you're gonna make content in different platforms that's applicable to the Renton Highlands and valuable to them. Because ultimately you're making up a resume for yourself on your digital media, so on your social media, on your website, and you're making up a physical representation of who you are and who you are in that neighborhood, right? You want to become the expert in the Renton Highlands, so you should be top of mind all the time in every touch you can get, because you don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, imagine doing this 3 months in a row, and then you host a neighborhood event, or 6 months in a row. You did the cycle 6 months. And then you hosted a big neighborhood event. Does that make sense? And then you sprinkle in whatever you want, but this is kind of. It's repeatable, you keep doing it, and the more and more you do it, you're like, instead of 100, why not do 200? Instead of 200, why not do the 300 in that local neighborhood? Because now you really know all the streets, letters, now you have people following you. It just grows and grows. Does that make sense? And this can apply not only to, we did a hyper local market, but it can apply to a grouping of people, demographic, anything of that sort. But, and then you do multiple campaigns. So maybe this is your Renton Highlands campaign. Then the other one's the women's group campaign. Maybe the other one is the XYZ campaign. This is kind of the process you would take for each one of those campaigns. Does that all make sense?
Because not everybody's gonna be on social media. Not everybody's gonna check their mailbox, and everybody's gonna look in their email. Not everybody's gonna answer the door, but the goal is that in one of these ways that they're getting your information and they're getting the value that you're providing to them. So it's gonna, think about all good examples. Think about our office and all the emails you missed from us. Or I didn't know this is coming up. It takes multiple connections to communicate an event coming up at the office here. So it takes a phone call sometimes, takes the email and multiple emails. It takes a social media post. It takes different ways to communicate things that are happening, right? And sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I missed that. I'm like, well, probably could have done 4 or 5 more touches, but if we did that consistently every month, even 3 months into this, I think Bradley said it took him like 9 months, and he was getting calls from people like he was a neighbor. He wasn't a neighbor in the neighborhood. He didn't even live there, but because he did it so consistently, it felt like the guy lived down the street, right? So, yeah.
Would you put something in there that you're in the neighborhood, or let them know that if you live in the neighborhood?
If it's your neighborhood?
Yeah, would you put something?
I would say, hey, I'm your local neighborhood real estate expert, something like that. Like, yeah, I'm a neighbor down the street. I specialize in real estate, and I'm offering CMAs for all my neighbors for the summer, whatever it is. But don't say CMAs. Say your
Right.
home evaluation,
Evaluation.
your free home evaluation, just for my neighbors, because I'm a local realtor in your area. Let me know if you want to talk. Make it yeah, make it as personal as you can, and that's probably the best case
Yeah.
scenario, is you made it personal and professional in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Cause you have your, I'm a realtor, expert, hyper local area, and I rent Highlands, let me know if I can help you. I'm offering it only to the people in this neighborhood.
I have a vested interest in keeping our neighborhood.
I have an exclusive event coming up for our neighbors offering free blah, blah, blah. Like keywords like that, but then also communicating. I'm here for you because I am your neighbor who knows everything.
That's what I was saying. I have a vested interest in keeping our neighborhood great.
Advocate for
Good one. Yeah.
best interest, so this is the example, but I think that was kind of all those things, but let's see. Yeah, questions, comments, ideas, anyone online? That's kind of what we got today, but the goal is to definitely have a plan and process, but without content and knowing and understanding what you're doing in your real estate content, and it can be difficult to even get to the planning part. So really establishing your brand, who you are in real estate, what you're doing, and a target market. Once you establish that, it'll really help you get to your marketing calendar for the year, your content grid, scheduling out all of your pieces, and not being so stuck on that I have to be on social media to be able to get my leads, because that's just one platform of communicating to people. It also takes the in-person touches that is going to be really effective. It takes the videos, it takes the emails, it takes all efforts to do that. But it also takes priority and time to do that. So like we said, you gotta prioritize getting this planned out, even if it takes the power hour at the beginning of the, or end of each month for the next month. Put that on your calendar now if it helps you, or create a separate calendar in your Outlook of just, this is my marketing hour. And what am I looking to plan it out? Also included in the handouts is some AI prompts that John L. Scott provided. So if you are struggling with content ideas or just how to talk to the ChatGPT stuff, or it's a really great resource to use at the beginning of figuring out what I'm going to do. You can ask ChatGPT to create you a marketing calendar as a real estate broker in the Redmond Highlands who wants to provide valuable resources to homeowners. It will give you a plethora of ideas. It's too easy at this point, but use your resources, and then also ask questions if you're still struggling with what should my content be and how should I get it done. Of course, you can do a class, but it's always hard just getting it done. So ask questions, don't be timid, or look at each other, what everyone else is doing to get inspired, and maybe ask how they get it done too. I know a lot of people use VAs. Some people just use the scheduling calendars on Minute Business Suite, like Facebook. You can schedule out your content for social media there. You can schedule out email campaigns on My Desk. You can, we support you in office for your letter campaigns. So the only thing I can't do for you is door knock. So that's your time commitment that.
Man, okay.
I mean, but I will definitely give you the pieces to do that. So, all right, well, that's all we got today.
Thank you.
Margaret, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All this time and now you said.